We're constantly chasing after something that someone else has, the face that someone else has, the body that someone else has. I think the pick-me's thrive for trying to make other women out to be fools for succumbing to the need for male validation, but they're actually succumbing to male validation by trying to embarrass other women. So if our role models are snatched to the gods, Coke bottle body, face beat beyond reproof, dripping in designer with a 40-inch bust down to match, this is what we seem to love, this is what we praise, and this is what we seem to value above all else. What does it look like we're promoting? Don't trap people into believing that the only way to achieve beauty is by going under the knife or scheduling a cosmetic doctor's visit. I'd rather look hot and people are always commenting on the work that I've had done than constantly be bullied for being fugly. Hey guys, what is up? It is Cam. Welcome back to my channel. I think over the last few years, our generation has become incredibly obsessed with the idea of bodily modification, especially that through plastic surgery. In 2020, we collectively witnessed the surge of the BBL epidemic, where we saw many women getting the plastic surgery procedure known as the Brazilian butt lift. And despite all of the research and articles that came out expressing the incredible risks that were associated with getting a BBL, with death being one of the most alarming, a lot of women still made the decision to go and get this procedure done. They went as far as to go to other countries for it, for many different reasons, but the most popular two were for the lower cost and for the approval from foreign doctors to have the surgery, since many women were actually denied as being good candidates for the surgery by doctors here in the US. And since then, we have seen the BBL epidemic go from being viral to being a lot less popular, to the point where I even made a video about the end of that era a little over a year ago. And while I personally believe that the decline has a lot to do with the influence of the Kardashians and Kim specifically deciding to get her BBL significantly reduced, either way, it seemed as though this epidemic had come to an end, for better or for worse. Even with the end of the BBL era, plastic surgery didn't just take a back seat. I think a lot of people are still deeply interested in being enhanced, even if it's in smaller ways, because we still can't accept ourselves for the way we are, especially if we have perfectly good bodies. This leads us to wanting to have surgical enhancements done for many different reasons: self-validation, validation from others, body dysmorphia, low self-esteem, jealousy and envy, covetousness, and many more. In this video, I want to explore the desire for plastic surgery as a generation that can't seem to find contentment with the way that we look naturally. And I want to talk about how we may have just gone too far. And before we get into it, if you have not already and you want to join the family, you want to join the community, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 30K subscribers, so I am so excited to continue growing this community and growing this family. And I'm so happy for all of you that are here, especially those of you that choose to stay. Welcome. And if you want to be notified every time I post, make sure you go ahead and click that notification bell so you can be aware when I post all my videos. You can be the first one to be here, first one to comment. It's so special. And if you want to follow my beauty and lifestyle content, that's where I post my natural hair videos, my vlogs, my fashion content, etc, how I beat my face, how I do my makeup. You can subscribe to my second channel as well. And if you want to keep up with me outside of YouTube, you can follow me on all my social media. I'll make sure to have everything on the screen and link down below. And without further ado, let's get into it. When I was thinking about things that I wanted to talk about, I came to the realization that there was just a lot going on in the realm of social media. And to be fair, there's always a lot going on in social media, but recently I feel like there has been a lot of talk about body modification, especially in the case of plastic surgery. It sent me into deep thought about what the idea of plastic surgery has done to our society, and more specifically to our generation. And I think we live in an incredibly unique generation just because of the advancement of technology that has happened so super duper quickly. I can remember growing up with the dial-up internet, if you can believe I'm old enough, and now we have the internet right at our fingertips because of our phones. My point is that I believe the rise in desire for plastic surgery is directly connected to the rise in technology, especially because the only way that we as commonplace people had the knowledge about plastic surgery was from things like magazines, tabloids, reality TV, etc. With social media, we have access to more knowledge knowledge and insight on what celebrities and popular influencers and public figures are doing in their everyday lives. Beauty secrets are constantly being revealed and have more and more reach to us as we browse through social media day in and day out. And so I want to say this very quickly. I wanted and still want to make a video about the rise and fall of the Kardashian Jenner family. Let me know if you want that video, by the way, because I will kind of talk about their role in this plastic surgery situation. But in this video, I wanted to discuss the nuances of their influences, including the way that they inspired a lot of women to go through with various different kinds of body modifications in the form of plastic surgery. The more famous they got, the more plastic surgery I seemed to witness. And that was actually the most interesting phenomenon to me. Recently, a popular influencer actually passed away from a plastic surgery procedure, and this is what inspired me to make this video. I want to get into the weeds of plastic surgery and talk about these different nuances because I think it's a very important conversation to have, especially as our generation is becoming more and more easily influenced. Our wants and desires for things like plastic surgery must be confronted, because at the same time that it can be incredibly rewarding to get your dream body or face, it can also be incredibly detrimental for everyone involved if things end up taking a turn for the worse. And before we get into it, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Thank you so much, Dossier, for sponsoring this portion of today's video. I believe everyone everywhere at this point, and especially you guys, know how much I love fragrance and smelling good. That's why I love partnering with Dossier. Dossier is a company that believes everyone deserves to smell like luxury, and I believe that too. As someone that has developed a large personal collection of fragrances ranging from very cheap to very expensive, I know just how costly it can be to smell good. Dossier cuts down that price barrier and gives you the chance to smell luxurious at an affordable price. With prices starting from $29, you have a wide selection of fragrances to choose from that are inspired by the designer fragrances that are currently popular and sold in most major retailers. Dossier's fragrances are a fraction of the price and smell just like the fragrances they're inspired by, which means you can also build your perfume collection without breaking the bank. It's so good that I even started using some of Dossier's fragrances to build my man's collection. We are all about to be out here with bomb collections and smelling phenomenal thanks to our friends at Dossier. For more information on how you can get your hands on some affordable luxury-inspired fragrances, see my description box below and click the link. It'll take you straight to their website where you can get your perfume collection started. And thank you again to Dossier for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now back to your regularly scheduled content. Let's talk about trends, cycles, and covetousness. I feel like that's a pretty solid opener. I don't think it's any secret that this generation is ruled by trends, cycles, aesthetics, and wanting what they see that another person on the internet has. I personally think it's incredibly apparent. You can literally go to any social media website ever and see examples that are as plain as day, as apparent as ever, to the point where it's actually a little scary. As a society and generation, we place our worth and value into our looks, our material possessions, and our follower count. And what's worse is that we tend to ebb and flow as things come in and out of style. This prompts for mass overhauls of entire wardrobes, makeup products, and even personalities. We tend to get pretty caught up in this cycle. And what's concerning is the fact that we apply the same rules to something as permanent as plastic surgery. In February, the American Academy of Facial, Plastic, and Reconstructive Surgery released the findings of its 2022 plastic surgery survey. 75% of the surgeons polled reported an increase in the number of patients under 30 requesting plastic surgery or injectables for cosmetic reasons. If Gen Z's values seem at odds with its rising participation in these cosmetic procedures, that's because they are. Buckling to beauty standards that place a premium on classically European features such as small noses and fair skin buys into the very rhetoric that young people readily decry. But appearance, particularly that of women, has never existed in a silo. Understanding why Cohen and her peers are turning to plastic surgery and injectables and how they feel about it reveals just how deep our conceptions of beauty cut. Gen Z's coming of age also coincided with the rise of modern cosmetic treatments and the mainstreaming of plastic surgery, making these digital natives bona fide aesthetic natives. They've been brought up in an era where it's very much the norm to get plastic surgery, says Dr. Richard Reich, a board-certified New York City plastic surgeon specializing in rhinoplasty, which is the most frequently performed surgical procedure among teens and 20-somethings. The normalization of plastic surgery has fostered an uncanny level of comfort with procedures, ushering Gen Z into exam rooms at an unusually early age. They're really going forth unafraid to the world of medical aesthetics, says Dr. Laura Devkin, a board-certified plastic surgeon in New York City. Whereas millennials were curious and research-oriented, and Gen X and older were more reticent and cautious, the Gen Z patients in my practice are forward-thinking and open to experimentation, invasiveness, risk, and downtime. Beauty standards have been such a hot topic on social media within the last few years, and I think the reason why is because we've had such such a great exposure to the conversation. Whenever it comes to looks, alterations, what's in and what's out, it's all been broadcasted without fail, and as much as we're glued to our screens, that's what's being shoved in our faces. I also think we tend to become fascinated with uncovering the mysteries behind things, especially when it comes to the elites. And by elites, I mean celebrities, popular influencers, public figures, and generally any person that has any sort of fame and notoriety. And as the lines have blurred between who can actually become an influencer, so has the access to the lifestyle that they tend to live bled into the lifestyles of normal everyday people. I think we're obsessed with the way that we look. And even more so, I think we're also equally, if not more, obsessed with the way that other people look. We begin to kind of covet other people for their appearance, which I believe is skating a fine line in and of itself. We're lost in the idea that pretty, beautiful, sexy, hot, or gorgeous all has to look a certain way. And spoiler alert, it doesn't. Aesthetics are so important to us, and I think that's more so than any actual character trait that we could have. People are going to see the way you look first, so how you present yourself is of the utmost importance. So if you line up with what society says is currently trending, attractive, and aesthetic, then you're going to be favored. And as much as we think we're doing something for ourselves, a lot of the times it has undertones of also being for the approval of others, our peers. And listen, you ain't gotta lie to me, because I'm definitely not the one to sit here and judge you. I've definitely been there, done that, and had my fair share of wanting something for myself just because I care about what other people are going to think of me. I feel like that's kind of a normal human thing. We care about what people think of us, and I think that's pretty normal to an extent. But this is a never-ending cycle that constantly perpetuates itself, and it seems as if we fall for it every single time. And as much as we would like to think of ourselves as being too woke to get caught up in the fallacies of trends, we do it anyway. And why? Because it's seen as a method of survival. You must keep up or get lost in the haunting idea of what once was. And in this case, it's what was once popular. And please expect to be made fun of if you're caught being late to a particular trend. As plastic surgery trends are constantly fluctuating like fast fashion, we are left with the decision to hop on the bandwagon and do something that could harm us or that we will potentially end up regretting later, or face ridicule for not being able to meet society's beauty standards by altering our faces and bodies. So let's get into the performance of it all, because in a way, I will say, I believe that it's all very performative. And most of the time, it's because we're all plastered in front of each other all the time. We live in a generation that is becoming more and more obsessed with attention. And honestly, I'm seeing a major through line in the things or ideas that our generation is obsessed with. And I'm finding that most, if not all of these things are rooted in some sort of vanity. And the one thing I know about vanity is the fact that it's a moving target. And moving targets remind me of circus monkeys. You're required to perform well in order to receive recognition and admiration. And because we live in a world of instant gratification, we want to be praised, and we want it now. We want someone to tell us we look good, that we're beautiful, that we got mad drip, that we have nice things, etc., etc., etc. And keep in mind that all of these compliments come from a place of superficiality, in most cases because our eyes are always on what someone else has. So we work in order to maintain a perception that is publicly favorable. We want people to like us and appreciate the good qualities about our lives, so we put on a performance. And this is the problem with plastic surgery. It's like a prop in the grandeur show of life. It's a constant reach for modification. As soon as you find a new thing that you don't like or that you want to fix, alter, or tweak, you do a quick change. And if it doesn't harm anyone, it's good enough for the most part, right? That is, until it isn't anymore. And then it's time for a new update. But is this really all for compliments? So people can have validation in the eyes of the greater public, the people watching us? According to the Aesthetic Surgery Society, surgical procedures increased by 54% in the US alone in 2021. In Canada, the leading cosmetic surgery procedures are Botox and rhinoplasty, with over 18,100 and 9,900 online searches on the procedures respectively. Many have hailed Hollywood as the ultimate propeller of the cosmetic surgery industry. This is because Hollywood has been the hallmark for setting beauty standards on screen and off the screen. The fact that a good number of celebrities have resorted to cosmetic surgery to enhance their looks was always going to reflect in the number of people who would toe the same path. I think society plays a tremendous role, he said. We're seeing social media setting all kinds of trends as people are having faster and more frequent access to the latest celebrity looks and trends. Someone is always watching, so why not put on the best show possible, right? Well, that's what happened when it came to our looks. Most people that create content and are popular are usually under an incredible amount of scrutiny. So much so that it can lead them to wanting to modify their appearance just to get people to shut up. And I think partial of the surge in procedures that we're seeing is because people just want them. You know, they have this idealized version of themselves in their head, so they want to manifest it by making their fantasies come to light. But the other part of that is because people are just being straight up bullied. A lot of people even find themselves in situations where they feel like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. So why not choose the lesser of two evils? I'd rather look hot and people are always commenting on the work that I've had done than constantly be bullied for being fugly. And I think this is a fair argument. Like, let's be real. If people on the internet are constantly coming for me and telling me I'm fugly, I'm about to sit up in here and try to figure out how to unfugly myself, and quickly. Like, these are real life issues. In a society where we tend to value looks over everything, if your face is constantly being plastered across people's screens, there's an immense pressure to be attractive in some capacity. While research has yet to pinpoint the definitive driver behind the growing number of young people seeking cosmetic alterations, Dana Berkowitz, an associate professor of sociology and gender studies at Louisiana State University and the author of Botox Nation: Changing the Face of America, theorizes that a few cultural phenomena are at play. In 2022, she conducted a series of interviews with a group of 25 women aged 20 to 25 who use Botox and filler. She gleaned three overarching factors leading these young patients to inject. First, the normalization of procedures like Botox and filler. Second, increasing accessibility to these procedures via med spas and other providers. Third, the pressure to broadcast perfection online. Berkowitz also acknowledges the unglamorous, unjust truth that women are rewarded for participating in beauty culture. Whether it's cosmetic injectables, plastic surgery, or extreme dieting, a woman's appearance functions as aesthetic capital. Beauty is currency, which translates to social and professional success. Amid an uncertain economy and skyrocketing cost of living, it's hardly surprising that young people are going to extreme lengths to get ahead. Our desire to put our best face and body forward is what has gotten us caught up in the drama of plastic surgery. We are constantly tweaking ourselves, making small judgments here and there about what about ourselves can be fixed or made to look better. We are literally obsessed with the way that we look. Granted, we are in a generation that has developed these ideals, and it almost seems as if you don't align, then you're going to get left behind. But I think this is the wrong approach, because at the end of the day, it's truly, honestly doing nothing but harming people. If you want to enhance yourself in any way by having a procedure done, by all means, be my guest. But don't trap people into believing that the only way to achieve beauty is by going under the knife or scheduling a cosmetic doctor's visit. Let's at least explore other options first before we join the circus. So let's talk about the dangers that we face, because I feel like we always talk about plastic surgery from the idea of beauty standards this, beauty standards that, aesthetics this, aesthetics that, but we never talk about the actual danger of it all. And plastic surgery is something that is incredibly dangerous, so I don't know how we get away without talking about how dangerous it actually is. You're literally going under a knife. Somebody is cutting you open. Somebody is injecting foreign substances into your face. Like, what about this is not clicking? Recently, Wild 'N Out star Jacky Oh passed away from going under the knife in order to receive a mommy makeover. And unfortunately, she was the mother of 3 small children. And so as I was researching for this video, I was reading a whole lot of articles and seeing what a lot of people had to say about her. And in this one article I read, it said, according to Stanford Medicine, a mommy makeover surgery entails a combination of various procedures tailored to the patient's preferences and can include any combination of the following: tummy tuck, breast augmentation, breast lift, liposuction, vaginal rejuvenation surgery. But typically, the standard mommy makeover entails a tummy tuck and breast augmentation. In a 2017 interview with DJ Small's Eyes, Smith opened up about pregnancy, her love for children, and the pressure to snap back after having children. I looked in the mirror and said, dang, I need to lose some dang on weight because my stomach looking crazy. But you know, it happens. I had a baby, she said. An increasing number of women, including new moms, appear to be going under the knife to keep up with trendy beauty standards that glorify Instagram-friendly faces and hourglass figures. Any plastic surgery, including mommy makeovers, carry inherent risks such as infection, bleeding, scarring, adverse reactions to anesthesia, and blood clots. In the case of Jacky Oh, the exact cause of death has not been determined. However, her story brings to light the importance of choosing an experienced, board-certified plastic surgeon to minimize these risks. These specialists have undergone extensive training, possess the necessary qualifications, and adhere to stringent safety standards. There are inherent risks in everything we do, says New York plastic surgeon Brandon Gandolfi. When considering surgery, one should research the surgeon, his or her credentials, and read some reviews at a minimum. The person should check references like the American Board of Medical Specialties or specialty-specific societies like the American Board of Plastic Surgery. Not doing so is the equivalent of driving a car on the highway at night without headlights or a seatbelt. In the case of Jacky Oh, a social media post mentioned a popular influencer plastic surgeon known as Dr. Zachary Oka, or Dr. Zach, who allegedly performed the procedure. Prior to her surgery, Oh shared a post on Instagram with Dr. Dr. Oka, where she wrote that she would reveal everything else about her procedure on her YouTube channel. The post has now been deleted. Dr. Zach's board certification and qualifications have come into question since the entertainer's death. However, no cause of death has been determined as of yet. A patient death from elective aesthetic surgery becomes a notable event anywhere in the world, adds Eugene, or plastic surgeon Mark Jewell. All types of surgery carry risks and uncertainties, even in the best of situations of a prudent patient, prudent surgeon, and prudent planet. It's very unfortunate and it's horrendous to see a death of any patient, especially from elective surgery, adds La Jolla CA plastic surgeon Robert Singer. Unfortunately, there have been too many of these in Miami from mommy makeovers and BBLs. While it can occur in anyone's hands, patients should seek out care from a board-certified plastic surgeon with an appropriate anesthesia provider and be operated in an accredited or licensed facility. It's also important that the doctors see them well ahead of time and take a full medical history and explain not only the benefits but possible problems that could occur. Patients considering undergoing a plastic surgery procedure like a mommy makeover should thoroughly research their chosen surgeon's credentials, including board certification, years of experience, patient reviews, and before and after cases. When it comes to what happened to Jacky Oh, I think is extremely unfortunate and sad because she did not have to lose her life, especially not to plastic surgery. As a generation, we are constantly chasing our ideals, and sometimes in doing that, we have lapses of judgment that could end up with us putting ourselves in harm's way. And I think this is what happened in her case. No matter how much research we do and which of the best doctors we choose, the risk is always going to be there. And this is the point that I think we consistently miss. I just wish that we would talk about these risks and dangers more instead of just glossing over them in the name of reaching our peak aesthetic. I opened up this video talking about BBLs, and more specifically the surge that happened in their popularity back in 2020. They became so viral and desired among younger women and older women alike that it ended up being considered as being some sort of epidemic. After a little bit of time, a lot of articles and research started to come out about how BBLs were incredibly dangerous, with the highest risk and concern being death. And I've actually made 2 different videos about this, so if you're interested in that, I'll make sure to link them down below so that you can go watch them after this video. But regardless of all these concerns that were being raised, many women still went to go get that procedure done, and many women still wanted to get it done at some point anyway. And the reason why I bring up the BBL in the case of plastic surgery is because it's considered to be one of the most dangerous kinds of plastic surgery procedures out there. But there are so many more procedures that can be done, that are done, and are deeply desired by a lot of people in our society and generation that are still extremely dangerous, even if they don't have the extremely high death rate or the dangers aren't outwardly promoted or expressed. The reality is that plastic surgery is dangerous, and the sooner we acknowledge that for what it is, I think the better off we are, especially in the case of choosing not to live in delusion. And I also think it will even affect the willingness that we have to promote it or even desire it. So let's talk about our influence on the children, because the case of children is one that I'm actually extremely passionate about, believe it or not. They tend to carry a charisma about themselves that inadvertently shows off their youth and ends up refreshing us all after a time. So I think it highly important that we, the adults, do our best to protect them, the children. In the wise words of Whitney Houston, I believe that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. As the examples, we should be teaching the kids what really matters and what's really impactful in life. And I really do think that the idea of physical beauty is so superficial that it so easily corrupts their little minds. Children aren't grounded in who they are. This makes them easily impressionable. They see a thing that's trending and they automatically want it just because it's popular. They don't have as much individuality, so they can get caught up in that mob mentality, competition, and all other sorts of things that they quite frankly don't even need to be worrying about. The cycles that we perpetuate are harmful, and it's mostly because these children don't know any better. Beauty standards play a huge role in the realm of children, especially because they are getting access to technology and social media younger and younger and younger and younger. And the one thing about kids is that they're gonna be mean and they're gonna have no filter, even if they don't realize it. They're gonna make sure to not hold back when they tell you looking crazy, and I think it's even more prevalent when they're dealing with their peers. They be bullying each other without remorse. So if you ugly,
well, Good luck, Charlie.
So I feel like sort of a destructive cycle begins to form because of all the information that they're constantly taking in and how they're comparing themselves to what they see. Bottom line is that kids are insecure and have low self-esteem, especially as they're going throughout puberty. If someone is super pretty or handsome in their class, has started developing already, or is getting a lot of attention from other people in their class because of the way that they look or the materials that they possess, of course it will make the ones who are seemingly lagging behind feel a type of way. And I feel like it's unreasonable to assume that this won't happen. And I'm sure we all have stories just like this from when we were in elementary or middle school, because it's almost like this very, very universal coming of age story. I just feel like the problem is highly exacerbated because of social media, and especially because kids that are living normal lives can see how kids of celebrities are living and what they have access to, which a lot of the times is miles beyond what a normal kid could even think or imagine. Swiping through TikTok can take one on any number of similar cosmetic journeys, guided by chirpy, young content creators who emerge ever so slightly more tucked, augmented, or symmetrical. Plastic surgery's initial purpose was primarily to reconstruct rather than enhance. During World War I, doctors developed methods for fixing ruined noses and shattered jaws, and after the war, they used them for elective cosmetic procedures. In 1962, Timmy Jean Lindsay, a Texas housewife, became the first person to get silicone breast implants. By the 1990s, aging baby boomers with plenty of discretionary income decided they wanted to freshen up their looks. Liposuction procedures increased tenfold that decade, by some estimates. But despite its steady growth in popularity, cosmetic surgery has often been discussed by those who undergo it in the hushed, cryptic tones usually reserved for national intelligence agencies. For every celebrity like Dolly Parton, who once famously declared, "If something is bagging, sagging, or dragging, I'll tuck it, suck it, or pluck it," there were a dozen others who outright denied having work done. Gen Z is perhaps even more tangled up in this discourse than any other generation. In addition to growing up during what Laura Devgan, a plastic surgeon in New York, described as a mainstreaming of plastic surgery, 20-somethings also grew up during a mainstreaming of body positivity. While Dove commercials and curvy Barbie dolls urged them to love their bodies, Instagram filters and reality TV urged them to consider how they might be more beautiful if they look completely different. They were told to accept themselves just as they are, then shown all the ways in which they should change. We are in a culture that's promoting body acceptance, and we're also still in a culture that is very much committed to hierarchizing women and their value based on how they look, said Virgie Tovar, an author, lecturer, and expert on weight-based discrimination and body positivity. The idea of its plastic surgery and its effects on children goes into the concept of 12 going on 21. I made a video earlier this year where I talked about what the Combs twins, or Diddy's daughters, and the Game's daughter were wearing at a birthday party. And the reason I made those comments were because their attire seemed to be a little bit inappropriate for their age. It was low-key giving dominatrix, and I just thought that was a little bit off for a pair of 16-year-olds and a 12-year-old. There's a pressure looming around us all, especially children and teenagers, to grow up fast and become a baddie literally as soon as possible. And it seems as if no one is actually going through that awkward teen phase that I can remember all of us having at one point in time. It's a pressure to look a certain way at a certain age because of what's being promoted in the media. And at this point, it's not even that we're adultifying children. Children are adultifying themselves. They are a willing participant in the adultification of their own existence, which is such a wild concept if you really think about it. Yes, we use beauty as a currency, and yes, the kids are starting to understand that earlier and earlier. But how can we see a change in this concept if we don't first become it? It's easy to talk about this, but it's hard to live it, I know. But I think our values have to shift first in order for the rest to follow. And this obsession with beauty standards and plastic surgery is included in that. So let's look at who the role models are and why we're specifically allowing our children to look up to them. What does this do to our kids' perception of themselves and others? I think it's unreasonable to expect our kids to not feel negatively about themselves and the way that they look, especially if we're constantly pedestalizing people that are more artificially enhanced than they are natural. The expectations are far beyond what can actually be achieved without getting work done, and I actually think that that's the first misstep. Who are we lifting up and exalting, and why are we doing it? I think we must always be aware of the impression that we're making on children, especially when it comes to social and pop culture, because like with everything, they are always always watching. And even when you think they aren't, just remember that they soak in everything like a sponge. So if our role models are snatched to the gods, Coke bottle body, face beat beyond reproof, dripping in designer with a 40-inch bust down to match, this is what we seem to love, this is what we praise, and this is what we seem to value above all else. What does it look like we're promoting? And if our children aren't able to attain this, whether it's in their childhood or well into their adulthood, what do you think this makes them think about themselves? It surely can't be anything good. So let's talk about the concept and idea of going from one extreme to another. I think there has been a lot of pushback on the idea that plastic surgery has begun to rule over our generation. So much so that we have begun to go from hard right to hard left. We have seemed to go from one extreme end of the spectrum to the other extreme end of the spectrum in a sort of attempt to do some kind of course correction, and neither of which I think are at all healthy ways to deal with this. And I say that because what good is one extreme over the other? We're just entertaining the idea that a happy medium doesn't exist, which just isn't true. Pick-meism is at an all-time high, and just because you don't engage in any type of plastic surgery, cosmetic procedure, or general face or body modification doesn't make you any better or worse than the next girl. We are all trying to find different ways to cope, and I think plastic surgery is an avenue that we have created in order to deal with beauty standards and our rising insecurity. If you decide to follow through with modification, fine, but if you don't, I don't think it's wise to pick on those who do. I think we should be encouraging people to get to the root of their insecurities and start their pursuit of wholeness. But not everyone is going to take that route, and that's okay. All we can do is allow people to make their own choices and decisions based on the research and resources that are out there. I think the pick-me's thrive for trying to make other women out to be fools for succumbing to the need for male validation, but they're actually succumbing to male validation by trying to embarrass other women. Seems like an oxymoron to me. So we need to find a balance and strike it in the midst of all of the opinions and chaos that's going on. The development of our generation and the way that we lead and guide the one that's coming up after us depends on it. But how can we effectively do this when we're so constantly worried about ourselves? Should we turn a blind eye while the low self-esteem and insecurity rates continue to go up, while plastic surgery becomes more common than normal, while the risks continue to be ever present? What's important for us to pass down to the generation coming up after us? Beauty standards or morality and character? At what lengths will we go to make sure we look good, so much so that we begin to neglect to acknowledge the decline in our mental health? There is nothing more insane than resorting to a look just because it's popular and or works for someone that you like or admire on the internet. But it's also equally as wild for criticizing someone for deciding whether or not they're going to succumb to the pressures of trends and aesthetics. People need to be given the opportunity to see for themselves and make mistakes, because that's truly the only way that we learn. We also need to give grace where it's due, because the pressure can in fact be too much for some people to handle, especially if they aren't used to having a bunch of eyes on them all the time, which is inevitable when you add social media and a following into the equation. Plastic surgery is just another one of those things that will cause us to put ourselves under a microscope, wondering whether or not we look good enough to measure up with what society deems to be attractive. This is a major pressure for everyone everywhere at this point. But what I hope that we would think about is that maybe our desire for plastic surgery has gone too far. So in conclusion, this is not me at all saying that beauty is wrong, but I think it can get a little bit tricky when we start to want things that other people have just because we ourselves don't have them. Whether that's the look, whether that's the body, whether that's the material possession, whether that's the follower count, whether that's whatever. And I think that's the reason why plastic surgery is so prevalent in our society, is because we're constantly chasing after something that someone else has, the face that someone else has, the body that someone else has, and we just can't copy it. We can't regenerate it. We can't achieve that, because no one person was made to look like another person unless you're an identical twin. And even then, they tend to have little differences in the way that they look as well. So in no case are you ever going to be able to look like someone else, regardless of if you get the same rhinoplasty or breast augmentation as they did. But my main point in this whole video is to strike up a conversation around the idea of plastic surgery, because I think that it's an interesting concept that has seemed to take over our generation in more ways than one. Alright you guys, so that is it for this video. If you liked it, make sure you go ahead and give it a big thumbs up And if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment this emoji. That way I'll know you made it this far into the video, and I'll love you forever. You will have a special place in my heart. Oh my gosh, you're gonna be my favorite person ever. And if you like this video and want to see more content like this, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to my channel. We are on the road to 30K subscribers, so if you want to join the family and join the community, that would mean the world to me. That would actually literally mean so much to me. So if you decide to do that, welcome to the family. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here. We're happy to have you. And one more time, just another special shout out to Dossier. Thank you so much, Dossier, for sponsoring this video. It's always a pleasure to have them because I love being able to give people that may not necessarily have luxury budget access to luxury inspired things. So with fragrance, which is one of my favorite categories in the beauty space, I love being able to smell good, and I love other people being able to smell good as well. And if you want to smell good on a budget, if you want to get luxury on a budget, Dossier is definitely the way to go. And you guys know that I love them. I have worked with them a bunch of times in the past. I trust them. I have a bunch of their fragrances and they have never steered me wrong. So if you want to get some of your own luxury inspired fragrances, make sure you check out the description box down below for more information on how you can go ahead and get your own as well. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to be the light, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.